My name is Jerry Gill. Today is June 11th, 2009. I'm visiting with Mr. Joe McDaniel and his daughter Mary Jo McDaniel here in Sulphur, Oklahoma, where Mr. McDaniel now resides. This interview is for the O State Storage Project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Mr. Daniel, I appreciate you taking time to interview a second time with us. You're a legend at Oklahoma State University, and we want to be sure you get all of the story, okay?
Oh, I'm happy.
And Mary Jo, thanks for joining us. It's time done. And so I should introduce you, I guess, you as, of course, the daughter, but also as passionate OSU fan, former OSU mat maid, right, and kind of family historian.
Yes.
So we appreciate you being with us, kind of helping out today. Just a couple questions I wanted to ask you. Mr. Daniel, we visited last time about several of the things that you did, some of the stories, but if you kind of review them a little bit, could you tell me again the story about how you got to Oklahoma State University? You were up there working in the summer, and how you met Coach Gallagher?
Yeah, between my junior and senior year, my dad was a driller in oil fields, and he was doing a job up there, and I went up to stay with him. Mr. Gallagher was having his coaching clinic, and I wanted to ask him if I could come to it. He said, sure. And of course, all the coaches were much bigger than I was, and I'd wrestle them. If they got rough, he'd go scold them a little bit. So when I was over, I thanked him for letting me go, and he said, Joe, I want you to come wrestle for me when you get out of high school. I said, I'll be there, Coach. And that's how it happened.
You showed up.
Everybody in our school, my high school coaches were OU. And like Lawrence Matthews was my first coach, and he was Oklahoma University's first national champ.
Really?
Yeah.
His name again was
Mantooth, Lawrence Mantooth.
Lawrence Mantooth,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. And he was a switch artist. He invented a switch, and he taught us a switch.
Yes.
And I say, one time I said, Coach, why don't you teach us something else? He said, you don't need anything else. All you need is one good takedown, one escape, and one pinning hold. So, but he was a great coach. But in that summer my dad was working in Stillwater, and I went and visited with Gallagher.
Now he was working, Joe, and I didn't mean to interrupt that. He was a driller, is that right?
Driller in oil fields.
In oil fields, so
Yeah,
they were working in the Stillwater area there that summer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how
you got to Oklahoma State.
Most everybody, they almost called me outcast here in Sulphur because everybody else went to OU. We had three guys on my first wrestling team that I wrestled here under Mantooth were myself, D.C. Matthews, and Ted Anderson. All three won the NCAA championships in college.
It's amazing.
Three of us on the same team.
And Davis and the other young men were at OU, is that correct?
What?
Davis.
Matthews went to OU, and Ted Anderson went to Central State.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. Well, what you mentioned earlier in your career that you used to get pretty hyped up, you get real nervous before a match, and burn a lot of energy, and you tend to kind of maybe burn out a little during the match. Yeah. And you shared a story how Coach Gallagher was a pretty good psychologist, and how did he handle that? Could you tell that story?
Yeah, he told me after the match I lost to Billy Carr. He told me the next week I wasn't going to wrestle. But he said, I want you to weigh in case this other kid can't make weight. So I did. And of course, I wasn't nervous all by that time. I don't know what wrestle so bad. And so he took us both up to the mat. And he said, okay, Joe, you're going to wrestle now. When I took both. I never had any problems after that, really.
Great story. Well, now, if I could back up to kind of prompt this, so the match before that, you burned out against Western and actually maybe got pinned even in the
Yeah,
the match?
I think the only match I lost.
Mm-hmm.
Started out, I'd get so nervous by the time I'd get to the gym, I'd just be weak. So I kind of struggled those first 2 or 3 matches, but I won them, but not bad. Then there's one that I lost to Billy Carr of OU. And I just ran out of gas and he pinned me. So next Monday, Coach Gallagher said, Joe, he said, you're not gonna wrestle this week. I'm gonna let this other boy wrestle. He said, I want you to come weigh in case you can't break weight. So by the time I was on Monday, by the time Friday came when we were having the matches, I wanted to wrestle so bad I couldn't stand it. So Joe, you suit up because we're gonna kind of keep our opponents guessing. They won't know who's gonna wrestle. So when we got up there in the ring, then we wrestled up in the ring. He said, okay, Joe, you're gonna wrestle. See, like after that, I didn't have that nervous problem anymore. That kind of cured that.
How'd that match go? Did you pin your guy?
Well, yeah, I beat him real bad.
Real bad. You're ready to wrestle.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of, Mr. McDaniel reminds
That's
me.
the only match I lost in college that won.
Pardon me?
That was the only college match I ever lost that won that.
The one that you got pinned was the only one you lost in?
Yeah.
In 3 years of varsity wrestling, you lost one match?
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Of course, now, Carr was a pretty good wrestler too, though.
Yeah.
Wasn't he ashamed to lose to
That same year, we met in the finals of the Nationals. And I beat him pretty bad.
Well, Mr. McDaniel, that reminds me of another story I'd like to ask you about. Again, you alluded to briefly when we talked earlier about, your father was unfortunately involved in a serious accident. And
yeah, that was just before this Nationals, and he was involved and finally died and buried, and I was gone for about 10, 12 days. When I came back, they were leaving the next day for the Nationals. And I wasn't going to go. He said, this other boy's going to wrestle for you, Joe. I said, oh, let me try out for him. Let me wrestle him down and try it, Coach. He said, no. I said, we'll take you anyway. So he took me, and I didn't know I was going to wrestle until we got to that.
Well, if I recall, Mr. Mary Jo jump in here a little bit with the story, because I know you know a little bit, but his father, did this, which year was it? His junior year, senior year?
His junior
That your father died?
No, I think it was I believe it was in the sophomore year.
Sophomore year, okay. And so.
Yeah, because that's the year I
37, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was your first
37. So your father was in Texas, was involved in a serious automobile accident, and so you went down to Texas to visit with him, and he asked you, I think, can you help with the story there, Mary Jo?
The accident was right after Dad got beat by Billy, it was after he got beat by Billy Carr, and they were supposed to wrestle OU again.
And I'd won a national AU that the year before.
And so Dad went to Texas to be with him. And so my
there.
grandfather had asked him, Joe, did you beat Billy Carr? Because
That's
he
my
knew.
Dad, my dad asked.
Right, your dad asked you. Be my grandfather, but your dad.
Yeah.
Right. Said, Joe, did you beat Billy Carr? Because he knew they were supposed to wrestle at OU. And my dad said, yeah, Dad, I beat him. Which he didn't wrestle him. He just lied and said, yeah, I beat him. And he said, well, did you win the Nationals? And Dad said, oh, yeah, Dad, I won the Nationals.
Neither one of us never happened yet.
Yeah, it hadn't happened yet.
But the pressure of the line, this is your father who's dying, and you told your dad, well, I beat Billy Carr in that duel, and then I'm going to win the NCAA championship.
Right.
And
right.
Did you go ahead and do that then?
Well, I didn't. I missed the match with Billy Carr because that was during the.
Oh, missed it. Okay.
But I met Billy Carr in the finals of the nationals.
So he had missed like 10 days of wrestling.
So
Therefore,
you did
this was
keep
a
the promise
10-day
you did,
span.
yeah.
And so then when he came back and they went to the nationals, then he wrestled the tournament and had a very good tournament. And then,
I kicked his butt.
And I remember the last conversation said you took him down, let him up, and took him down again several times.
Yeah.
Kind of wiped up the mat with it. So you kept your promise to your dad.
Yeah.
You did. In that one match, you won the NCAA tournament and you beat Billy Carr.
both.
That's great. Great story. Great story.
Both happened it actually happened at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you again about, Coach Gallagher. From what I've understood, read about him, and heard people talk about him, he was kind of a master psychologist. Not with a lot of words, but like the thing he did with you after the Carr match. Do you remember some other things he did with wrestlers that kind of get them ready to wrestle?
Well, he never said much. He just, if he had the greenest rookie, he'd go, all right, go out there and feel down a little bit and slap a pinhold on and pin him. Maybe that guy would be startled. Maybe they're going to be wrestling a champion or something like that. But he always made you think you were supposed to win. And, he had that policy, and he'd, when you won, well, he'd just pat you on the shoulder, wouldn't say much. But in 1938, we won the NCAA, and they were sending the National AU champions to Europe. So we went, I think the only time we ordinarily as a team didn't go to the AAUs, but we went that year. And by Thursday night, I got my elbow dislocated. And Saturday day we were supposed to wrestle. That thing was all swollen up. He came to me and said, Joe, I just don't think you can wrestle with that elbow. I said, oh, let me try, Coach. And Ray Swartz was assistant coach, and he kind of taped it where I couldn't straighten. And I wrestled one, I think fairly easily. And that's the only time he complimented anybody. He came around, slapped me on the back. He said, Joe, I just don't think you can be beaten. Yeah.
It's great. What you guys, obviously winning so many NCAA championships and had a great coach. Supposedly he was a engineering student, graduate when he was at college.
Yeah, and he was a track star, but
he believed in leverage and different things. Did he kind of spend time working with you on holes and showing you different techniques? Was that one of his strengths in the wrestling room?
Well, I really don't remember too much.
Mm-hmm.
The time I wrestled for him, he had the pulse real bad, and he didn't do much.
So he couldn't do much himself?
No. Once in a while he'd get out there and demonstrate a few holds, but he's made you think you could lead, you could lose.
He put that belief in you that you could win and convince you were good. In terms of working out, in terms of discipline, did you train a lot? Did you run a lot? I know you had to probably run to make weight, but did you work out quite a bit, the team members?
Yeah, we wrestled quite a bit, and if we wanted to run, that was on our own. I don't think he ever said we should run or anything. We just conditioned. Run to lose weight or to help your condition, but mainly all I saw him was in the wrestling room.
But he expected you to be running on your own, working out. Well, what did you do to make weight? Was there did you run so many miles a day, or how did you go about it?
Well, I never had any problems. I was always underweight or I was never over 2 pounds.
Mhm.
Some of the guys, they'd go sit in the sweat box or run and something like that, and I'd go with them lots of times just to be with them.
Just to make them feel better.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I want to go back and ask you, I'm trying to remember additionally you won your 3 varsity years that you're out, you won 3 NCAA championships, but now you also won either 3 or 4 AAU national championships.
Yeah, 3, I think.
3?
2 of them, my freshman year, we weren't, freshmen weren't eligible to wrestle, couldn't wrestle on the team. But that was 1936, and that was Olympic year, and the AAUs was one of the qualifiers for final Olympic drought. So we went, he took 2 of us, myself and Stanley Henson, to the Nationals AAU with us. That was in Chicago, I think. And that's where I won my first national.
First one in 36. Then did you then try out for the Olympic team after that? Was there a tryout?
Yeah. But I was a 115 pounder, and some of those guys just manhandled me.
So the smallest weight at that time was like 120 something, is that right?
Yeah.
126 maybe. So you were a fairly small 115 pounder, and then you were really, really small 126 pounder, right?
Yeah, when I came down 10 or 20.
How did you do in the tournament? Did you?
Well, I placed, I went to the semifinals, got beaten in the semifinals.
Let me, want to pick up on something you and I talked about last time, Mr. McDaniel, and that was about, of course, you didn't quite make because you were a freshman, and that lower weight made it tough to make it in the Olympics. But then, after you finished your career, then of course they didn't have the Olympics in 1940, so you kind of missed it there. But you went, the Goodwill tour to Stockholm and to Europe.
Well, in 1938, we went to AAUs because they said that the AAU champions would get to go to Stockholm and Europe. So
Special tour.
Yeah, so we did wrestle that. And on that, there was 3 of us from Oklahoma State that made the team, myself, Stanley Henson, and Johnny Harrell.
Mm-hmm.
And
you wrestled in, I think you mentioned maybe Germany and
Stockholm, Sweden.
Stockholm, Sweden, 2 different places.
My first match was with a Olympic champion, 36.
Zombori.
Huh?
Was it Odon Zombori?
Yeah. He was 36 Olympic champion. My first match was, anyway, I beat him pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Now, this the guy from Sweden. There was the third 1936 Olympics gold medal winner.
He was Hungarian. He was from Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
We had Sweden had a tournament. Mm-hmm. It was Germany and Hungary and Sweden and USA. And I met him in that.
So what you beat him? I understand pretty handily, didn't you?
Yeah, easy.
Did you feel pretty good about being an Olympic champion?
Oh yeah.
Kind of rubbing him.
Yeah. Oh, John Harrell also beat a Greco-Roman Olympic champion.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrestled 4 or 5 matches, dual meets around in Sweden. Every time we go, that guy's name was Alex Collier, I think. And every place we'd go, this Collier would be there to wrestle Johnny. Johnny beat him about the first 3 or 4 times, and finally he beat Johnny the last time. We were sitting. He said, "Hell," he said, "if I hadn't let him beat me, we'd have been there forever."
Well, Mr. Dan, do you ever feel cheated a little bit, maybe that they didn't have the 1940 Olympics, and you would have probably been at your prime back then?
Well, I was very disappointed. You know, only Olympic chance I had got was when I was a freshman, and I wasn't ready then. But I think that Stanley Hansen and I could have dominated if they'd had him. And when they should have 40 and 44, 48. So.
Was that a goal of yours that you thought about, when you were wrestling, that you'd want to wrestle in the Olympics someday, before you knew they wasn't going to have them in 1940? Is that something you hoped that you'd have the opportunity to do?
Yeah, I mean.
Then you beat the 1936 champion, like you just drub him, and you got to feel kind of like, gee, they might have done pretty good in the 1940 Olympics, huh?
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I wanted to ask you also about was it in February of 1939 was the first match ever wrestling match in Gallagher Hall, now Gallagher Arena, and you have a special place in history in that. So the lowest weight you wrestled first.
I wrestled first match ever wrestled in Gallagher Hill, and then it was Gallagher Hall. Later they changed to Gallagher Eye when Mr. Ivor died.
You wrestled the first match and won the first match ever in Gallagher Arena. That's pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's got more fame for that than he has everything else.
More fame for that than all the championships.
Well, how did you feel and the team feel about, they had to be kind of a special with the team, that first match in Gallagher, it's huge Gallagher Hall at the time.
Yeah.
Did you feel pretty pumped up for that match?
Well, it was, but I think I told you, all the people sat upstairs. And it was fun wrestling in that old Gallagher when if you fell out of the ring, they'd catch you another round. At Gallagher at first, there were no seats or anything downstairs. They were upstairs. It seemed like the crowd was so far away from you. It didn't seem like they were there.
Well, Bill, that was, I think it was Gallagher Day. They called it in honor of, Coach Gallagher. And do you remember a little bit of the buzz, surrounding the match and being Gallagher Day in his honor? Was the team aware of that? Was that special to you guys?
Well, I don't. They named it Gallagher Hall, but he was always special to us. It was always just like any other match, I think.
All right.
It wasn't much fun as wrestling in the old place because the people were so far away. It was fun to me because I wrestled first match ever. Wrestled there.
Well, it had to be a little bit special. You guys, did you realize that probably Coach Gallagher was pretty close to the end of his career because of his Parkinson's disease? And
well, we were, last year I was there. I came back and was his assistant coach in, I guess, 39 or something. And actually, he wasn't in practice half the time. I selected the team that year, really kind of didn't coach it. But we felt that, that he was pretty, I didn't expect him to die, but I thought he'd be where he couldn't even move.
Didn't he? I heard he used to keep his hands in his pockets a lot, or sometimes sit on his hands to keep him shaking.
In the match, he'd always sit on his hand. When you come off, he'd congratulate be.
So something I didn't understand, can I be sure I got it right? You come back in 1940 was his last year. That was after your senior year. You helped as an assistant coach.
Yeah.
And you did a lot of the coaching and showing the holes because he wasn't able to do that. did he die in, I'm trying to think of 41, a year after that
He
then?
died that summer.
That's right, after that last year.
Yeah, he went out to Colorado. So the heat really bothered him, not to be in the cold weather or so. I guess he got the cold, had a stroke, and died. One of the wrestlers went with him, and he wanted me to go, but I couldn't go. No. I thought maybe if I had, that wouldn't have happened. But if it had happened, I'd have been really felt bad about it. But I think he was. I think I really hurt that he died, but I think I was kind of relieved that he was out of this. You know, he was getting so bad that life wasn't really wasn't having much pressure and pleasure in life.
I think I asked you this before, but I think you did not make the funeral. Is that right? They had, I understand, a large funeral there in Gallagher Hall, but were you able to attend his funeral?
I don't remember why not, but I wasn't around.
Quick question I want to ask you. I've seen some pictures of the wrestling teams back in the 30s that had the cowboy boots and the cowboy hat. Did you guys, when you travel, you said by car and by train occasionally. How did you dress when you were traveling?
Well, most are just normal. Some of the guys wore cowboy boots all the time. When we went to Europe, the three of us wore cowboy boots. I hadn't even ever had any cowboy boots till we got to go. I just bought them to Stanley Henson and Johnny Harrell and I all wore cowboy boots, and everybody was wanting those cowboy boots when we were over there.
When you went back east, like when you wrestled in Madison Square Garden and some of those tours you made back east, that was pretty good stuff for the Easterners, wouldn't have the cowboy boots and hats.
Yeah.
They probably thought you dressed like that all the time, didn't they?
They thought we were pretty cocky, and we were, because we didn't think about losing. We knew we were going to win.
Well, a couple of quick questions. I want to get back, kind of finish your AAU career question again. When you graduated from Oklahoma State, then you come back the next year. It was assistant coach, would have been in 40, and then you were wrestling coach the next year at you went in
Paul's Valley
High School for a year.
Yeah, and we went to. We drove. I drove and took about 3 of my kids, I think, to New York City, and I won the National A there. Both of those kids really thought that was great, you know.
Well, see, now in 41, is it 42 that you went back to the AU tournament with Paul, your brother, is that right?
Yeah, I was in the Army then.
Okay, you'd been drafted in the Army. Mary Jo, can you kind of help, you know this story, probably you can help us with this story a little bit with your dad, but so you were going up to wrestle at the AU tournament in 42. You'd been drafted in the Army at that time after a year of coaching at Paul's Valley. Then there was some question about whether you're going to be able to wrestle?
Tell that story.
Yeah, well,
Hitchhiked all the way.
When we got there, I was going to wrestle 115.
Start where you hitchhiked from Oklahoma clear to New York.
Oh, that's right, just to get there. So you hitchhiked to get there?
Hitchhiked, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just put your thumb up, and
Yeah.
that's a long way. Where was it again? It was in New York?
Yeah, New York City. Well, in those days, hitchhiking was very common. You know? When I went to college, we didn't have a car, and if I ever wanted to go home, I had to hitchhike.
Well, do you remember how long it took you to get to New York hitchhiking?
Well, we made it pretty good, you know. We didn't have much trouble.
So you and your brother Paul, is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when we got there, I was gonna wrestle 15, he was 125. I had my weight then. And they told me, "Oh, you can't wrestle because you're coaching your professional."
You've been paid to be a high school
Yeah.
wrestling coach, okay?
So I went out that night and had a few beers and got overweight. Next day I took Paul up there to weigh in, and they said, "Well, aren't you gonna wrestle?" I'd already went way past that 150. So yeah, I wrestled. I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna wrestle." And I wrestled 135, and I got beaten in my house.
Because of course you didn't want to weigh in against your brother Paul. So then you jumped up another way.
Yeah. I wanted him to have a chance to win the Nationals.
So
And he won it. He won it.
He won it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. How did you do then at that higher weight?
I think I got beat in the finals.
You beat in the final. 2 weights above your regular weight. Wow.
I got kind of manhandled that last match.
It's a great story though. I'm trying to imagine hitchhiking from Oklahoma to New York just to get the chance to wrestle. I mean, you probably kept your condition just working your way to New York, didn't you?
Well, I don't remember how long it took us, but I think we made a pretty good time.
Well, a question that I really wanted to ask you last time and I forgot, and I want to ask you. You've been inducted into the Collegiate Wrestling, National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what year that was?
Yeah, you got there. What is
You remember, Joe?
1979.
1979.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is the highest award that a wrestler can get. I mean, induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I was very, very proud of it. Yeah.
So, what do you remember about the event? I guess it was held there in Stillwater at the Hall of Fame there, and you can, Mary Jo, you can help us out here a little bit with that. You were probably there, I'm sure, right?
Oh,
With
yeah.
family. But what do you remember about it a little bit?
You got pictures there.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of pictures. Well, that was just a neat time. I was pretty young. I think I was probably in the 6th grade or something, but it was neat for Dad.
Yeah.
We had most of all of our family was still living at the time too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was about 8 or 9 family members.
Yeah, we had a lot of family there. I think Stanley presented your award, didn't he?
I believe so.
Stanley was his presenter at that time. They've changed it all now, but at that time you chose your presenter, and so Stanley Henson came in from Colorado.
Sammy Henson was your presenter. You want to tell us a little about Stanley that maybe that people wouldn't know? He wrestled at OSU with you.
Yeah, he was 3-time national champ. He was on that team that went to Europe, but he got his shoulder dislocated in the first match and didn't wrestle anymore after that year.
I'm trying to recall Stanley Henson. Now he was in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Y'all wrestled against each other in high school. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you meet in the finals?
We were in the finals of the state tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He beat me.
He beat you? Oh my gosh! And you're still friends.
He kicked my butt. Well, we became friends when we went to college. We were real close friends.
Now I understand Stanley's still living in Colorado.
Yeah,
Do you ever stay in touch with him? You communicate?
Well, about once a year. He became quite a famous surgeon, and this last year he retired.
Well, I think he's been retired for several years.
In the last couple of years.
Well, one thing I want to ask is a little bit your collegiate wrestling career. Can we talk a little bit about when you went in the Army? When you come out of the Army, then you were wrestling coach before Syracuse. Was there one school you were at before you went to Syracuse?
I went to Maryland. Maryland was the first year out of when I left Paul's Valley, I guess. I was off that and I went to Maryland, and the war came on.
Okay.
And I came out and went in the Army. When I got out of the Army, I went to, I didn't coach for a while, I think. And then I went to Syracuse.
Now, you were at Syracuse how many years? Do you recall how many seasons?
I don't know, 8 or 9, 10.
You were there 10 seasons.
Now, you had some pretty good teams that you placed fairly high, some of your teams, didn't you, in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah. I think we placed third one year. Or fourth. Third or fourth.
And then you won, they used to have what they call it, the Eastern Championships, Eastern Collegiate Championships.
Syracuse, we won that every year.
That's what I was thinking, won that about every year, didn't you?
Yeah, they never won it till I. Of course, the old man. It was kind of when I went in the Army. I was stationed at Syracuse for a while, and worked out with some of those guys. And they told the athletic director about me, and he talked to me and said, "When you get out of the Army, let me know." So when I got out of the Army, Mr. Iva called him up. He says, I got the job there, and I stayed there about 10 years, I think, 10 or 11.
Well, that had to be a good run there for you, those 10 or 12 years, winning every one of the Eastern Championships.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of your wrestlers outstanding wrestlers you had?
Kenny Hunt, Pascal Perry, and George Gebhardt were the stars when I was there.
Did some of these guys place at the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
So you had some All-Americans, which for Syracuse was pretty special, wasn't it? I mean, they had not been that competitive before.
Yeah. And then we had, last year we had Looney, I think.
Rooney.
Yeah, he was in the
Jim
finals.
Rooney.
Yeah.
James Rooney.
Rooney.
I think he was in the finals, got beat in the finals, I think.
How were your teams known? What were they known for? You had to be pretty famous or pretty infamous there on the East Coast with beating everybody. What are you guys known for?
I don't know.
We called that one group Murderers Row.
Yeah.
Gebhardt.
When I went there, Lehigh would win it just about every year. And then Penn State sometimes. But when I was there, we won it just about every year, I think.
So Lehigh and Penn State were your main competition?
Oh yeah,
those years?
Levi was always good competition. Boys, my kids used to say, we hate to go to Lehigh, coach the fans boo us. I said, that's good. When they boo us, that means we're winning.
Were there any, we didn't talk about this last time, but as a wrestling coach, any awards or recognitions that you received? I mean, like Coach of the Year for the conference, or any special recognitions you got in your coaching career?
I don't remember.
No, I think he got several. I don't know how many times he got Coach of the Year high school or here.
But there at Syracuse, did they have, like in the Eastern Conference, did they have a Coach of the Year award that you won or anything like that?
I don't think they had those.
That either.
Mary Jo, what are some other stories we left out that we hadn't got to that you can share with us?
I'm 92 years old. I'm lucky to remember my own name.
There's been some great stories,
Yeah,
and you wrestled at a special time, the end of the legendary Coach Gallagher's career.
Yeah.
And is there anything, Mary Jo, from your perspective, we've left out? Is there some family stories? I want to talk about the high school wrestling here in just a minute, but anything else in collegiate or OSU career?
I don't think so.
Can we cover?
I think he's done pretty good.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, going back to your career, Mr. McDaniel, when you were coaching there at Syracuse, and again, every year you coached there, you won the Eastern Conference, championship, which is pretty significant, as we talked about earlier. How did you recruit, how did you get that talent? How did you turn the program around?
Well, we had Fred Gardner at one of the, not in New York City, but one of those, Long Island, I guess, was coach out there, and got 2 or 3 of his boys, and, you know.
So that Mepham High School? Or?
Yeah, Mepham High School. He was quite a famous old coach. About 3 of his kids were married, and we didn't have anybody to recruit. I'd just go down and try to talk them into coming. Got that George Gebhardt from Pennsylvania, was in the finals at Nationals one year. But I think Long Island and a few from Pennsylvania. I just go down and talk to them, try to get them together.
So you developed relationships with some of the wrestling coaches, some of the better high school programs in New York and the Pennsylvania area.
I think the Mepham High School had like a very significant high school program. I mean, they were probably like the New Jersey school Blair Academy. I mean, probably in comparison. So the Mepham High School was the one who he kind of pulled a lot of his kids.
I had 3 kids from there, I think.
Great.
And then when he was at Wyoming, he recruited from Oklahoma. Remember, he had Jody Sloan. And he had some Oklahoma boys.
I had some other, Dennis Alf from.
Yeah, Dennis Alf.
He was from.
We appreciate it. I just want to flesh that part out. And again, thank you very much for the interview again, Mr. McDaniel. And we'll follow up here in a minute. We're going to talk a little about your career at Sulphur High School with the Bulldogs, okay?